Hey, this is Coach Pope, St. John Dragons. You're listening to the Knuckleball Primetime Show.
Hi, and welcome to the Knuckleball Primetime live from the barn office. You got the Mox here, and we're joined online with Coach Prope from St. John Dragons. Coach, how are you?
Great, sir. How are you?
Doing good. Central Rebels at St. John Dragons this week in Parkland Sports Live with Greg Allen, Mike Reeves, and Coach Stolzer. Catch the live broadcast on the Parkland Podcast Facebook page, the Barn YouTube channel, and pregame, which you're probably watching right now with Knuckleball Primetime. Thanks for joining us today, Coach.
Yeah, thank you guys for covering us.
You're sitting at 4-0. You guys you're off to a great start so far. What do you attribute to some of that success that you guys have had so far this year?
Hands down, senior leadership. We've got 18 seniors who played a lot of meaningful snaps last year. A lot of those guys started, and more than anything, I think this group has really bought into the culture part is a lot of players first. If coach tells you something, um, it's one thing, but when the players are saying it, it means a whole lot more. And I think more than anything, this group of seniors has really, really, really been a great leader. Has been a great example of the standard we're trying to set here at St. John for our players. And more than anything, I think those 18 seniors have done a great job of leading this group, leading this team, and putting ourselves in a position to be 4-0.
Were you expecting that coming into the season, knowing you were returning so many guys?
No, we don't expect that. You can't go into week one against a really good St. Vincent Indians team after losing 53-0 the year before and thinking you're going to go 4-0. That's not how we approach things. We're very cliche and we approach everything day to day, rep to rep. Obviously there was a lot of noise from the end of our season last year, the start of this season. There was some noise of, hey, you've got a lot of returners coming, and we felt like our players did a good job of blocking that out, and we as coaches continue to tell people, hey, St. Vincent had 16 seniors. These other teams have a bunch of seniors too. Just because you're a senior doesn't equate to success. You still have to do the work. You still have to put the time in and all those things. So again, more than anything, I think where we currently are is directly the result of this team, the players, the work they've put in, and their dedication to each other.
Do you think that senior leadership and the experience of under the Friday Night Lights showed up last week? You end up edging out a 1-point win over Potosi, and I think it showed a lot of resilience from your team. What did you learn about your group in such a close contest like that?
I don't think we learned anything. I think we confirmed it. I keep saying each and every week we've had a little bit of adversity, and these guys haven't flinched yet. And big fights, the guy that flinches is usually the one that loses, and these guys haven't flinched yet. And again, the atmosphere in our half times. Each locker room is different. Each team is different, regardless of what school you're at. From year to year, those locker rooms are different at halftime. And this group, again, when we go in there to make adjustments and talk to them, you get all their eyes, you get all their ears, and they're engaged and they're asking questions and they're taking those adjustments into the second half. And Potosi did a really good job that first half of coming out and doing some new stuff on defense that we hadn't practiced for, that we weren't prepared for. And it led to us being shut out that first half. And, once our coaches were able to talk to the players at half, hey, this is what we're going to adjust to. This is what we're going to do. The players took it in, and obviously the second half we were able to put up 25 points. And I think that is the difference between this team and years past when I've been here is this group is engaged and it's not a poor us situation at halftime when the game's not going our way. They're looking for ways to win football games, and they're doing that collectively. And I think that's the piece that we've missed here is you might have one or two leaders with that effort, with that engagement, but now it's everybody. These seniors have done a good job of leading that. If you look at that game-winning play we had, it was two seniors adjusting to what the defense gave us and kind of freelancing a game-winning play. And that's all credit to Ethan Ottens, the receiver, and Luke Ferrano, our quarterback, that continues to make really good plays for us.
Let's talk about QB1, Luke, number 10, 3-year starter with a lot of experience under the lights. How has his maturity shaped your offense this season?
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember him coming in as a sophomore. He exceeded our expectations, and it was kind of like, well, where is he going to go from here? We didn't know where his ceiling was, and I still don't think we know where that ceiling is, because each and every week he does something that kind of raises that. And I think the biggest attribute he has this year is he's not just raising himself; he's raising the guys around him. Um, and when we broke our huddle Friday night after the game, he had a one of the best I don't want to say a speech, but the best addressment to the team he was on that perfectly summed up our team to this point and our season to this point. And again, more than anything, he's a heck of a football player, but more than anything, he's a heck of a human being. And for a person like that to lead the Dragons this year is something we're very proud of and something we're going to continue to hitch our wagon to.
Let's talk about another senior standout, Taylor, number 69. He's a force on both sides of the ball, and I know he contributes a lot on the line. Talk about him and his presence in the trenches on both sides.
Yeah, Paul's a big human being. He was the class three shot putter, state champion, and he did not play eighth grade year. He did not play freshman year, and very rarely do I go out of my way to talk to kids about, hey, we would love for you to play football. We feel like that's an intrinsic thing. If you don't want to play, we're not going to force you. But Paul was one of those guys that was like, hey, one, you're a great leader for our high school, and two, you're a heck of an athlete, and we would love for you to be a part of it. And sophomore year he came out and he enjoyed it, and he came back last year and enjoyed it even more. And I think this year, obviously, he's having some success, and he has just really been a catalyst for our defense. When we start our game plan in each and every week, we kind of start with him and build backwards, and he allows our back end stuff to do some things. Fast and free because he is able to play as well as he has been playing. And, he's again one of those seniors that we're relying on heavily. And I always joke when people ask about it, I've been doing this for, 15, however many years, and there's only been about two kids that I'm scared of coaching. If I don't get too hard on them because they could whoop me in a second. One was Connor Tollison, who's playing at Mizzou, and Paul might be the only other one. And I'm very nice to Paul. Well, his dad signs my paychecks, and Paul Jr.'s a monster of a human being. I don't want him to give me a swirly or anything.
You kind of talk about how a great defensive lineman can help the people behind them. Sometimes it's like taking on double teams or splitting double teams or just having that extra free runner behind you especially if you're on the end position where your linebacker is scraping right off your tail and being able to control those, and that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. That's not, the numbers and the tackles and the sacks and all that. But that contribution to the defense can be huge and I don't think overstated.
Right. Yeah. And again, that's one thing that this group has bought into of doing your job. You might not make the play that gets your name on the PA system, but you made that play by eating up your gap. You made that play by taking on the lead block. You've made that play by doing whatever your job was for that play. And again, this group of senior linemen, especially this group of linebackers, especially, and the offensive line, same thing. That senior offensive line, they do their jobs. Without the intent of, hey, I'm doing this to be recognized. They're doing it because it's their job, and they're doing it so the team can have success. And when you have guys doing their jobs like that, especially on defense, like you said, it's a big factor in allowing other people behind you to have success, and ultimately that leads to team success.
We mentioned it off the jump. You got the Rebels coming into town this weekend, which is always a physical matchup. You know them well. You've played them a ton. Looking at the tape, what stands out as far as the Rebels this year?
Well, I don't care what the year is, as long as Corey Schweiss is on the sideline, as long as PJ Jones is on the sideline, as long as those guys are there, you're going to see the same things on tape. You're going to see well-coached, disciplined, fundamentally sound players that play with great effort every single snap, every single year. Outside of number 11, the numbers change. Number 11s can keep me up at night for like a decade now. I actually, I told Corey, I sent Corey a message the other day. I said, hey, just once, could you give a dumpy freshman a number 11 jersey just so for 4 years I don't have to think about it? But they're very well coached and they have great athletes. And again, I don't care the year. You're going to get their best shot. You're going to get a well coached team, and they're going to do their job, and they're going to make you fight for every single yard. And they're going to play aggressive on defense, and they're going to make you fight for every single yard. And it's always a fun matchup. And I think the thing that gets kind of lost in this game is, it's considered a rivalry, but, our staff and their staff are good friends. I consider Corey a really good friend. He's helped me out more than he's needed to. I consider PJ a good friend. And, there's not that hate there, I don't think, so it's a rivalry for 48 minutes. But after that, I feel like, our players, their players, our staff, their fans, it's a fun environment. I think it's just a good high school football game. And, we're lucky enough to experience that twice a year. I feel like every year I've been at St. John, we've seen them twice a year almost. And I really think it's just a really fun matchup.
We've seen a lot of the Rebels this year, and they can have so many different identities. There are times where they have heavy packages and they're just straight up the gut, hitting the A and the B gaps a lot of times. And I know their hard-nosed runner, I think he's out this week maybe. Their young quarterback is he doesn't have a lot of experience, but there's a lot of experience around him. And to have two systems where they can spread it out and they can make you, cover the whole field, but they can also get pretty gritty and grimy in the trenches and just come straight at you. That's two very different offenses that you're trying to plan for. Does that make it difficult, planning and pre-game practices?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like you said, they do a really good job of mixing in personnel, but I think it's a compliment to them of understanding their players and allowing their players to be in positions to be successful. I've watching film. We kind of seen that. I know the Bowers kid may or may not be playing. He looked like he hurt his knee against Fredericktown, and he's obviously a very good lineman and outside linebacker for him. But we're going to prepare like he's playing. And we've heard rumblings of August Black, their running back again, sophomore, who's done a very, very good job for him this year, and even last year gave us some fits. And again, we're going to prepare like he's playing. And like we told the players this week. Anytime you play Coach Weiss, whether he's calling the plays or not, you're going to get stuff we haven't seen. And going back to last year, I'm big and going back to previous games, and we couldn't handle their motions last year. That game one was a lot of we could not play defensively very well because we weren't prepared for all the motions we saw. And that was on me. I designed the defense that week, and we did a terrible job because I didn't have our guys prepared. So I think more than anything, it's trying to do your best to prepare the players for what we expect to see, but also, play football, match bodies, be ready for whatever, because we're going to get whatever. And again, I think that's what has made Coach Weiss so successful is he's going to give you wrinkles. He's going to throw punches. He's going to throw counter punches, and you kind of just got to be prepared for him and prepared the best you can and allow your guys to play football.
I know you added Coach Kruppe to your staff this year, and who's pretty well known as a defensive guru, and I think maybe even really, and I want to get your opinion, maybe leveled up your program in a lot of ways. Talk about his influence, and also he has a lot of experience against Central, so he knows Central very well as well. I'm sure that's helpful for you going into this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And Coach Kruppe, like you said, he's a wealth of experience. I remember listening to Corey talk. He feels like his program, the Park Hills program, has really accelerated once he's gotten former players to come join his staff. And here at St. John, we're kind of in the same boat. We've got alumni on staff, and it keeps building and it keeps raising. But one of the issues I found with that is these guys don't have experiences at other programs. They don't have experiences, with different systems. They know our system, which is great, but you kind of get tunnel vision on what you know and what you believe in. And, I felt like you said, Coach Kruppe coming in leveled us up because my biases and the way I like to approach from a defensive side was really not putting ourselves in the best position. And one of our big things this offseason was how can we improve that defensive identity? What gives us the best chance of success. And when I saw Coach Kruppe's name come up in the free agency, I did everything but sell my house to bring him over here. Because I knew, one, he had great experiences in different places. Two, he's a great human being. And I think that hire, I knew we had made the right choice, not from any X's and O's stuff, not from how he coaches our kids, which has been fantastic. We actually went out to Farmington for a summer scrimmage, which we had set up before he got here. And the most telling thing was after that scrimmage, there was countless Farmington players, parents, teachers that came over there and hugged him after that competition was over. And I think that speaks more to who Coach Kruppe is more than any record, more than, what his defenses are able to produce. I think him as a human being has helped us as much as anything. So we are very grateful to have him on staff. And like you said, I attribute a lot of our success on defense to his willingness to stick with his principles and his standards and bringing them here to St. John and implementing those to our players. And, our players have really bought into that.
You mentioned that Central's a little bit of a rivalry, it seems like. How do you keep your players focused yet energized for the game? I mean, maybe that's easy to do is get them excited, but how do you keep that focus as well?
But, it's when you're dealing with teenagers, if you can do that each and every week. You can do something special. And, it's anytime you enter conference, I think you have to do less of that. I think the kids are smart enough to understand each and every week of a conference game, kind of what's at stake, and the familiarity is there. A lot of their kids know each other, and I think it just adds a level of hype to it, which can be good or bad. That could add some noise to it, which could be good or bad. And I think how you harness that, how you use it, is important. I think as a young, arrogant, dumb coach, I use that in probably a negative light. And whereas I've gotten a little older and been around a little longer, I think we're able to harness the good of that and use that good motivation instead of, a hatred side of it. It's if a coach has to get you motivated for a football game using that approach, it's probably not a good strategy, and it's definitely not sustainable. So we've kind of highlighted the better parts of that of it, and going into this one, if our guys aren't ready for Park Hills, if we're not amped up to be back home after 3 weeks on the road to play a Park Hills team, depending on what state rankings you looked at, they're as high as number 5 in some of those. If that doesn't get you amped up to play football, I don't know why you're playing. So
I know we take it one game at a time, right? The old coaches talk, but if you're able to win, if you're able to get a win this weekend, next week really lines up for the media guys. We love storylines because we talk about rivals. Well, Valley is obviously a big rival of you, and you guys would both be going into the game undefeated, 5-0. Do you look that far ahead, or is it literally just one game at a time for you?
it's one game at a time. Yeah, we if we're not focused on ourselves, we're focused on our opponent for that week. So we're one day at a time, one rep at a time. I don't even know what we're having for lunch today because I haven't looked. I don't know if I'm supposed to pick my kids up after school or not because I haven't looked past this interview and what's next for the football team. So like I said, we know our conference schedule is pretty tough. We know we're in the thick of it. And again, the only way we can have any sort of growth each day is to do the best to make ourselves better.
What's the biggest area of growth, speaking of growth, that you still want to see from your team headed into the second half of the season?
Easy defense. Our defense has played really, really well. Our defense has played really, really well first, second down. Third, fourth down, we can't get off the field. And it's a lot of self-inflicted things. I don't want to take anything away from our opponents. Our opponents have done a very good job. We've given up 13 touchdowns this season. Of 10 of those 13 involved a third down penalty that extended their drive. It involved a fourth down penalty that extended the drive. It involved a blown assignment on our side. And when we have control over those things, and we continue to allow them to happen. Like I said, when you get into these big games against Central, if we continue to make those errors, we're not going to be able to come out successful. Okay, so we have to correct those, and each and every week we're no different than any other program. We sit down and discuss those things with the players and highlight where we can be better. And we just can't stay out of our own way in third and long, fourth and long, and get off the field. One of the big plays last week, Noah Walton had a fake punt on fourth down. It was the exact same play we saw the week before. We showed it to our players no less than 5 times. We were ready, we were prepared, but didn't execute. That their last touchdown drive with a minute left, we had them 4th and 13. We commit a PI play that was unnecessary. If we just rally and tackle the ball, it's our ball. It was a 4-yard, 5-yard pass on 4th and 13. We got to rally to that. We've got them 4th and 3, same drive. Everybody wearing green and white is yelling, "Watch the football," just like every school in the country. Watch the football. And what do? We jump off sides when we're right over the football. And until we fix those things, we are not going to win the games that we need to win, that we want to win, that we desire to win. So again, we feel like the growth is there. Our kids are capable of doing those things. They certainly want to. But until we put that on film, until we put it on the tape, until we put it into a game, we're going to continue to harp that that's our biggest area of growth.
Finally, Coach, we'll let you get out of here. I know you're busy. Appreciate your time today. But what's your message to the Dragon fans as you head into this pivotal Week 5 matchup?
Keep showing up. Keep showing up. We are very blessed in our community to have great support. We have a lot of passion. If you come to our game on Friday, you are going to see our facilities have been upgraded since last year a little bit, and that's a direct correlation to the support we get from our community. And without them, this thing wouldn't be what it is. And that has nothing to do with the coaching staff or the way we're playing. It's everything to do with our players and their parents and the support that we get. And we're very grateful for that. An example of that is last week we were on the road at Potosi, and, things weren't going great. After our first touchdown, there was a single trumpet in the stands playing our fight song. Like, we're on the road and we hear our fight song, and it just became like a rallying cry. And come to find out, our band director took it upon himself to go out there. He drove his son out so his son could watch the football game, and he just packed his trumpet with them, and it just kind of became a rallying cry. So the more things like that we can rally behind, and help our team keep the faith and keep the belief when things aren't going our way. Those things add up when you face adversity. So, I would just say to the fans, please continue to support these young men. Please continue to support this program. Because like I said, this week and every week from here on out, we're going to need every ounce of it to be where we want to be.
Central Rebels at the St. John Dragons. Parkland Sports Live with Greg Allen, Mike Reeves, Coach Stolzer. Catch the live broadcast on the Parkland Podcast Facebook page, the Barn YouTube channel. And this is the Knuckleball Primetime with Coach Pope of St. John. Thanks so much, Coach.
Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate your coverage. Go Dragons.